Good morning and welcome. What you are about to hear is not just another cable news interview. It is a revealing look into how the Trump administration is thinking about power, security, and America's role in the world.
Okay, I got it. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation with the Treasury Secretary of the United States, Scott Bessent.
Maria, good to be with you.
It's great to see you, Secretary. Thank you so much for sitting down with us. We so appreciate it, and there's so much to talk about, and we are going to be rolling on this live in about 20 seconds on Fox, so we want to make sure that everyone knows that this is a live program, and we will be taking this as it is happening with the Secretary this morning. I know there's a lot of conversation this morning about President Trump's considerations and thoughts about Greenland, and we will get into that, as well as the U.S. economy and the global economy as well. So, Secretary, there's so much to cover. Let me kick it off right now with just that, because I want to talk about trade and tariffs. It seems that the president certainly has set the tone before he even arrives tomorrow. So we'll get your thoughts on that, as well as AI, about the NATO alliance, as well as the macro story. And I will also bring up something that you mentioned earlier, which is the Draghi report. The reason that I'm strolling here is because I wanted the programming to catch up with us, so that we could begin live at 8:30. And in fact, we are beginning right now. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I'm sitting now with the U.S. Treasury Secretary. Secretary, let me begin on trade and tariffs, because President Trump seemed to set the tone of conversation even before he has arrived by threatening tariffs on our European allies until they support his plans to acquire Greenland. How do you justify taking over a country when, in fact, Denmark and Greenland have said they are not interested?
Well, Maria, I think the president has a very strong view on Western Hemispheric security and believes that the U.S. should not outsource our national security. He believes that Greenland is essential for the Golden Dome missile shield. And he also, the president, as usual, it's the move after the move that as part of NATO, I think the president is worried that if there were an incursion into Greenland, the U.S. would be called upon to defend Greenland. Greenland's becoming more and more attractive for foreign conquest, and he very strongly believes that it must be part of the United States to prevent a conflict rather than getting the U.S. engaged in ex post into a hot conflict.
So Greenland is not expected to be able to have the capacity to stop any potential missiles that could hit the United States. In other words, Greenland without U.S. ownership makes the United States vulnerable. Is that the president's main complaint?
Well, I think it's that, and that the U.S., there's the opportunity for the U.S. to become embroiled ex post into a kinetic war if another country moved in on Greenland, and no country is going to assert control of Greenland if the U.S. controls Greenland.
Secretary, what do you want to say about the response here? I mean, the European Union is pushing back, saying we are not going to complete our trade deal with the United States because of this. They have already called an emergency summit for later on in the week about this Greenland situation.
Well, I would say exactly what I said after Liberation Day last April, when the president imposed tariff levels on the whole world. I tell everyone, sit back, take a deep breath, do not retaliate, do not retaliate. The president will be here tomorrow, and he will get his message across. I believe he is going to have meetings, and again, also have an open mind that, why this rapid response in terms of, this is a no. And by the way, Maria, this has been in the minds of American presidents for more than 150 years. for more than 150 years.
So the vulnerability was seen even back then?
Well, or the strategic value of Greenland. And I think as there are more trade routes that move near Greenland, Greenland becomes more and more valuable.
Secretary, we're already seeing a reaction from markets. You've got rates spiking in the United States, up 7 basis points on the 10-year right now. You've got rates spiking in Japan. What do you want to say about this market reaction that we're seeing?
Well, Maria, I think it's very difficult to disaggregate the market reaction from what's going on endogenously in Japan. So Japan, over the past 2 days, has had a 6 standard deviation move in their bond market. That would be what has happened in the Japanese JGB 10-year would be the equivalent of a 50 basis point move in U.S. 10. So I think it's very difficult to disaggregate what the spillover from Japan is. I've been in touch with my economic counterparts in Japan, and I am sure that they will begin saying the things that will calm the market down.
So what are the plans for tariffs on Europe then?
Well, we're in the midst of completing a very good trade deal for both sides. So the plan is to go ahead with the trade deal. Of course, the president has said that he, on February 1st, will implement a 10% tariff if the Danes do not want to give up Greenland, and it is on the 8 countries that sent troops to Greenland.
So what do you want to say about the NATO alliance then? I mean, Denmark has been a long ally, the European Union united against any move. How do you progress with what looks like a strategic move for the United States, but also preserve the alliance, the NATO alliance?
Well, look, I think that the NATO alliance is very safe, sound, and thanks to President Trump, it's never been more secure. When President Trump came in his first term, the European countries and Canada were not meeting their spending quotas as a percent of GDP. Now they are. They got a lot of catch up to do. And Maria, to put it in perspective, the United States of America since 1980 has contributed $22 trillion more dollars, or spent $22 trillion more dollars on defense than all of NATO. So roughly the same size population, and we have spent $22 trillion more. That is 2/3 of our outstanding government debt. The Europeans have been spending the money on social welfare, on roads, on education, and it's time for them to pay more, which they've agreed to do.
Yeah, many of them have already stepped up, like Poland.
Everyone has except Spain.
Okay. And do you not feel that a security deal in the Arctic would suffice in terms of Greenland?
Well, I think what we're seeing, we're seeing with a base that we have shared with the UK for many years, the UK is signing the island over to Mauritius. So again, I can see why the president believes that for U.S. engagement, we do not want another Diego Garcia on our hands.
This is a very important point that you make. In terms of tariffs, how much money has been...
Today, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent sat down for a live conversation that quickly moved from economics into geopolitics, and it raised serious questions that go far beyond tariffs or trade deficits. Before we go any farther, if you want clear, contextual reporting that actually helps you understand what is happening and why it matters, make sure you subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. The interview began like many economic conversations do, polite, forward-looking, and focused on markets and trade, but almost immediately, the discussion veered into uncharted territory. President Trump's renewed interest in Greenland was not framed as a joke or a rhetorical flourish. It was presented as a strategic objective tied directly to national security and military dominance in the Arctic. That alone should catch your attention, and if you value reporting that connects these dots for you, subscribe now so you do not miss what comes next. Secretary Bessent justified the president's position by arguing that the United States can no longer afford to outsource its security, especially in the Western Hemisphere and the Arctic region. He described Greenland as essential to what the administration calls the Golden Dome missile shield, a defense concept aimed at countering long-range missile threats from adversaries like Russia and China. This is important context because it reframes Greenland not as a diplomatic curiosity, but as a military asset in an increasingly contested region. If you are learning something new here, take a moment to subscribe so you can keep getting this level of explanation. What makes this moment especially significant is how casually economic pressure is being discussed as a geopolitical tool. The president has reportedly floated the idea of imposing tariffs on European allies unless they support his Greenland ambitions. That is not traditional alliance politics. That is leverage-based diplomacy, using trade penalties to force strategic alignment. Secretary Bessent did not deny this approach. Instead, he suggested that the president is thinking several moves ahead, implying that pressure now could prevent conflict later. If you want ongoing analysis that breaks down what these strategies really mean for global stability, be sure to subscribe. There is also a NATO dimension that deserves attention. Greenland is part of the Kingdom of Denmark, a NATO ally. Bessent raised the concern that if Greenland were threatened or invaded by a foreign power, the United States would be expected to respond militarily under NATO obligations. From the administration's perspective, that creates a scenario where America bears the cost of defense without direct control over the territory. This logic helps explain the aggressive posture, but it also raises alarms about how alliance commitments are being reinterpreted. If you appreciate reporting that does not shy away from uncomfortable questions, subscribe now. Beyond the immediate controversy, this interview reveals a broader shift in how power is being exercised. Economic tools like tariffs are no longer just about protecting domestic industries. They are being openly discussed as instruments of national security and territorial influence. That blending of economics and military strategy is a defining feature of modern great power competition, and it is something viewers need to understand clearly, not just react to emotionally. For continued breakdowns that make complex issues accessible, make sure you are subscribed. As this conversation continues to unfold, the implications stretch far beyond Greenland. They touch on how the United States views sovereignty, alliances, and the rules-based international order itself. Whether you agree or disagree with the administration's approach, one thing is clear: this is not normal politics, and it deserves close attention. Stay with us for deeper analysis as more details emerge, and do not forget to subscribe so you stay informed, not just updated.